Welcome to Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering. Here we have John on a Jeskai Sharkstill versus Matt on Ruby Storm, a deck that has evolved quite a bit. This is from our August 7th Legacy Open. Shatterskull smashing mostly in there to imprint on Chrome Mox. Mono red deck at this point may not even be running any basic mountains. Fence Grid, a dangerous card against a explosive combo deck. They do resolve it. All your counter spells are going to cost 3 more, so you can still Force of Will, but have to pay 3 mana, making it so much worse. Same for Daze and Force of Negation. There's a bunch of free counter magic, but Defense Grid does an incredible job shutting them down. No matter how many forces your opponent has in their hand, if you manage to resolve that most games. Ragavan for Jeskai. Get a couple of Rite of Flames. Building some mana. Some Storm. The shields are down. Right now, this control deck, Jeskai Sharkstill, a big old bullseye. Storm can do its worst, and it's not really anything they're going to be able to say about it. We've got a gamble. Finding Echo of Aeons. Gamble's so strong in this deck. Gamble gives you the ability to tutor for anything you need. However, you discard a card from your hand. Now, very often what that looks like is you have Echo of Aeons and it's going to gamble for it and function as an Entomb if you've already got your Lion's Eye Diamond. But if you've got a few other cards, you can actually gamble for the Lion's Eye Diamond. And even if you only have just the Echo in hand, you still have a 50-50 shot if you go and grab that LED. Not where you want to be. You want a much higher percentage line for sure. Occasionally you get backed into a corner. Chrome Mox, Lion's Eye Diamond, Overmaster being imprinted on that Chrome Mox. Rite of Flame and the Storm just building here. Pretty easily lethal. Another gamble. Cards left in hand. Echo gets put into the bin. Card a basic mountain, unable to play it. The line continues. Spinning that wheel. It was actually a dangerous spot. Oh no, I think he had an LED on board. It's fine. That is how the mountain is in. A lot to follow here. LED and Lotus Petal again, and now Burning Wish, which will be able to grab Tendrils of Agony for the win. Plenty of Storm there. Lion's Eye Diamond able to create the black mana necessary for the Tendrils. And who knows, could have potentially won with a Grape Shot at that point. A few more spells, and that would have been lethal. So Ruby Storm, and that may be a little bit of a misnomer at this point. Ruby implies the presence of Ruby Medallion, a card that was originally in the deck, and that was basically to make up for the weakness of a lot of the cards that the deck was running. I mean, it had cards like Desperate Ritual, which were 2 mana to get you 3, and, you know, when they cost 1, they're fantastic. They're Dark Rituals. Seething Song, a little bit more of a reasonable Magic card, but at 3 mana you get 5. At 2, that's a Cabal Ritual. That's where you want to be. So it kind of basically upgraded the mono red deck to be having the same quality of accelerants as a mono black or a black based Storm deck. But ultimately just cutting that stuff looks like it ends up being better. Jeskai's Will ends up making more mana than Seething Song very often, especially after an Echo. And overall, the deck is just a lot tighter and putting up better results. The current build is called the Epic Gamble. Tony Scapone, local here, is putting in a ton of work in Magic Online with that, putting up great results. Recently top 8'd the Leaving a Legacy Open. Congrats there. It is fun to see this type of underplayed deck sharpened up and turned into a very serious contender in the metagame. Echo of Aeons and Lion's Eye Diamond gives it kind of a feel of old school vintage. Time Twister, Black Lotus. I mean, they're not quite those cards, but sometimes they're literally better. They're usually not on the same power level, but when they function, they're actually better, which is pretty remarkable. High praise of a card being better than Power 9. Sharkstill with a Ponder starting out. Shatter Skull smashing. And the Lion's Eye Diamond. And we're going in with Storm already. Lotus Petal. Chrome Mox. Echo already in hand. Got a gamble. 2 cards left in hand. Lion's Eye already on board, so this is going to be some extra. Oh, and the Echo gets hit, leaving Matt with presumably the defense grid that he tutored for, but we've got a Surgical. Oh, devastating. Surgical Extraction grabs the Echo, and that is going to severely cripple Ruby Storm's game plan. So much of what it's doing is looking to use the degenerate card advantage from Echo of Aeons and Surgical. Oh, what a absolute blowout. Now there's still one in the sideboard, but you're not going to be able to chain them together. Oh, and a Daze on top of it. So Daze and Matt at this point just cracks the LED, dumps the rest of his hand. I didn't actually catch if he had any more cards. I think he would have had 2 more cards in hand. Or 1 more. So yeah, he cracks the LED. Able to pay for the Daze. Defense grid does stick. But he is hellbent. 2 mana and no Echoes. Gonna need like a Reforge the Soul or something off the top. That's Surgical. So good there. And not always the case. Surgical can be kind of outdone. Prismatic Endings get rid of that defense grid. Timing considerations of who has priority can be a problem for a card like Surgical Extraction. You can't always play it when you want to. So if you sacrifice LED, not a ability that can be responded to with Surgical. Murktide Regent shows up, and this guy is absolutely massive. The full 5 counters, as we often see. He's an 8/8. We've got a Burning Wish off the top. That eats a counter, but at this point, it's just going to be a few swings. We actually have a dash for Ragavan. That's going to be 10 damage. This is like a 2-turn kill. My goodness. You know, we used to tinker for Darksteel Colossus in Vintage because that was a 2-turn kill. I mean, you also had Time Walk, don't get me wrong. Very often you were using Time Walk to make sure you got 2 turns. But, you know, setting a 2-turn clock in a control deck often, Magic history was as good as you could do. And that's what Ragavan and Murktide Regent just teamed up to do. 10 damage twice in a row, getting you out of there in short order after slowing you down with Surgical and counter spells. And we're into the 3rd game. Go either way. Ruby Storm's going to have the play. Would prefer that. type of matchup. Getting down a defense grid, untap, and I mean, there's a ton of first turn wins that are available with this deck. I don't know if we've seen many of them on camera. They do happen a lot. I would say more frequently versus decks with less interaction, as you don't necessarily have to play it pedal to the metal. Like a first turn maybe is not as good as a second turn for sure. Get down a defense grid. It's typically going to be the preferable route. Even if your opponent counter spells it, now they have to have 2 counters in order to stop you from winning. Here we go. They had some mulliganing there. This one. Gonna be 6 cards. There we go. City of Traders. Chrome Mox. See that Force of Will on the other side. Dangerous. We've got a Bergie. That eats a Force of Will. Can't force a negation that, as that is a creature. Region. Closing things out so quickly. I'm in a bad way here, passing the turn. Ragavan shows up, putting some pressure. Defense grid. See a daze. One is paid. Interesting, a daze just out of concern. That Ruby Storm could just combo off. I don't know that I like that. Down to just 1 land. You can get to 3 lands in this situation. Have a pitch counter. You may end up okay. And well, I guess Ragavan actually does ramp you, so scratch that thought. Oh, and just jamming a Hull Breacher main phase prior to those defense grids effect going back up. And now with Hull Breacher, that is going to shut down a significant amount of Ruby Storm's potential explosive power, especially from the situation being down on cards. 5 damage comes in. John's going to pass on casting that defense grid. Does not want another one of those on board. Not a whole lot that Ragavan's going to find. Going to be super exciting to cast. Overmaster. You draw a card, not going to matter. Got a Hydroblast. That doesn't make blasting. Still can't counter. It wouldn't draw a card. 5 damage coming in. Yeah, I can't see a reason to Hydroblast Overmaster with Defense Grid on board in that situation, especially when you have the Hull Breacher. And, I mean, buying yourself a treasure. 2 treasures overall. I think a treasure was sacked to cast it. Anyway, Shatterskull smashing. KOs. The City of Traders. Here's a Bergie. And that gets a Daze. That is going to do it. We saw the... Actually, I didn't even get to that. Nullrod showed up, shut down all those artifacts, playing at a very brisk pace. Bergie at the end is KO'd by Daze. Any possible hope of stabilizing eliminated with the free counterspell as Sharkstill takes out Ruby Storm.